to our 104th episode of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. In today's episode, we will talk about block themes, Gutenberg 18.8, WordPress 6.6, and so much more. I'm your host, Birgit Pauli-Hart, curator at the Gutenberg Times and full-time core contributor for the WordPress core open source project sponsored by Automatics for the Future program. Today, I'm delighted to have with me on the show Carolina Niemark, core contributor sponsored by Yoast. She writes on fullsiteediting.com and she regularly updates and adds features to the Gutenberg plugin and block themes. And she is from Sweden. Thank you so much for being on the show. How are you today, Carolina?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. June was a very hot month, but July has actually been a little bit cooler. We have had some rain here just outside Stockholm, so it's been nice.
Yeah. So the rain in Germany, it's still very hot. Yeah, or it's up and down. It was cooler earlier this month, but it's now really, really hot. And I'm glad I'm going out to the lake, or maybe I'm gonna go jump into the lake that's a little bit southeast of Munich over the weekend. So I'm hopefully the weather holds to actually have that.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We are also working on the house of my parents. Yeah, they to kind of fix some of the things, and I don't know how much time we're gonna have. Yeah. So yeah, let's just get into the show. The long-awaited release of WordPress 6.6 happened earlier this week, and it's named Dorsey after the legendary American big band leader Tommy Dorsey with the smooth sounds. The release post actually sports a Spotify link with a playlist of his great songs. It took about 630 contributors from 51 countries. And this release also welcomed over 150 first-time contributors. That's a huge number every time we have a release with the new contributors. So I'm really happy that we can onboard so many new contributors and get them on the release. Well, since the roadmap came out in 6.6 in March, we talked about the upcoming releases quite a bit. So for you, Carolina, the next question I ask almost everybody who was on the show, what are the most exciting updates in WordPress 6.6 for you?
Well, I hope this isn't too repetitive, but there are several things. The updated block style variations or section styles is a great addition. It helps users quickly select a pattern or a part of a page and just really change the style of it. It helps WordPress developers to work faster as well. I've heard some rumors that this is only a feature for block themes, and that is not true. You can use these section styles even in classic themes as long as you're using the block editor, because you do not need to use JSON or a theme JSON file to register these. You can register them with PHP.
That's true. Yeah, the block styles have been in Gutenberg for a long time, but the section styles are just coming in that you have a group of blocks that the styles apply to for the container blocks, like the group block, the columns block, and what was the other one? Was it media text?
Cover, perhaps?
Oh,
I've
yeah.
mainly been testing it out with
the cover,
block.
yeah, you're right. You're testing it out? You were going to say?
I was going to move on to my next favorite feature.
Okay. So let me just say that we have in the show notes two things for you, dear listeners, and that's going to be the dev notes about section styles and also the latest developer blog post about styling sections, nested elements, and more about the block style variations in WordPress 6.6. So what else is exciting for you?
We have the update where we're using Team version 3, which solves problem with the font size and spacing presets. And the presets are the default values that WordPress adds. So before we can upgrade to version 3, of course, the developers need to learn about the changes. And they need to decide if they actually want to upgrade or not. And this is going to depend on which WordPress version you need to support. So if you're supporting WordPress 6.6 and forwards, then you can definitely switch to version 3. But if you still need to support, 6.0, 6.3, and so on, then you have to consider this more carefully. So, of course, there's been many discussions about this. with theme developers, especially at WordCamp Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, the discussions about, so if I switch to version 3, I'm also going to have to update the spacing that I'm using inside the templates. And again, we're coming back to, okay, so if I update the template, how do I make sure that the end user knows that there is a theme update that they might have to actually, to receive this update to the template, they might have to go and reset the template on their installation. So it's tricky. It's a important decision to make if you're supporting many different WordPress versions.
Yeah, that has always been a kind of a bigger problem for theme developers when they update their templates and the user has modified the templates through the global styles, that the updates are not overriding those because the user has the latest priority or the highest priority. So a theme update wouldn't necessarily come through and make this available for older sites. Yeah, that's true. This doesn't go away with theme JSON version 3, but it makes it probably a little easier. But what will make it easier is another feature we're going to talk about. But I just wanted to point out as a side note that Carolina Niemark has updated pages on the fullsiteediting.com site to include all the new developments and updates. And I think there are 5 pages that were updated. And there was one on the global styles and theme JSON color options and typography options for font size, line height, font weight, and more. And then how to add shadows with the theme JSON. So the great site, fullsiteediting.com, that focuses so much on a block theme, teaches you even more on the new developments. So thanks, Carolina, for putting all the work in. And yeah, so what's next? So we had the style sections, we have the theme JSON changes, and then
we also have the overrides for synced patterns. This helps users keep the overall form, shape, design of parts of the content that they have inserted, but still change part of the content. For example, if you have this group block with the specific image and the heading that highlights your feature and the button, then maybe you want to use different images and you can go in and only change that image.
yeah,
And
it's
it
a
will
great tool.
update.
Yeah.
It's not super easy to explain, but yes, it's very helpful for site creators. From a team developer perspective, there's not much one can do with the overrides for synced patterns, since themes cannot register synced patterns, only regular standard patterns. So there's no attribute that I, as a theme developer, can add, for example, to my pattern PHP file to make it synced on theme activation. That doesn't exist. But hopefully we can continue working on that and find ways to make that happen.
Yeah, so let me unpack that for a little bit. So if a user wants to create a sync pattern and use one of the theme patterns as a blueprint for that, they need to use the duplicate feature in the pattern manager and then switch on the sync part and preferably also rename it so they don't see it twice in the list of patterns. But then if the pattern gets updated through the theme, they could see it, but their duplicate version won't update. So they need to kind of take care of that. But I like the sync pattern for site builders because it releases quite a few headaches that you had before, that you couldn't update the patterns, styles through the global styles. Now you can, and now you can also have your users or your other editors kind of use the same, and just change your mind. What's the background? Or
it helps if you have editors and you only want them to be able to edit specific things, then the synced patterns with overrides definitely helps with that. That's one of their biggest purposes.
Yeah, also for myself, if I had a pattern that kind of I can change the content of it more and more or more often and reuse it for a book review or for just a call for action, and I always have the same design but the call to action is a different one. It also helps me as a site owner quite a bit to streamline my processes. But right, so developer blog has an introduction to the overrides in sync patterns. That will be interesting to learn about if you want to read, if you want to learn about it. And then also link a iteration tracking issue for sync pattern in WordPress 6.7. It's still named a draft, but it has, when you look at it, it lists all the issues that theme developers had with the sync patterns and that they want to get fixed or enabled or feature requests. And one of them is actually make sync patterns available for theme developers. There's also great discussions from quite a few theme developers in the community that have been vocal about that. And the responses from the developers like Ria bring it all together in an overall model for sync patterns. So I'm really looking forward to how that work's going to progress. I'm not sure if it's going to be coming to WordPress 6.7 because we only would know that end of September, but there's 2 months or 2.5 months to go to actually work on that. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that 2.5 months is it's a very short time. I mean, the release squad for the 6.7 release, the post where you can, sign up or actually, apply to be part of the release squad has been up. I guess we will know more later next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna put it in the show notes. What you're just saying, the post with a proposal for the release, and raise your hand if you want to be part of it. Yeah, and there's also a section on the core block was another post that was, what would you like to see in the theme 2025? Because every year, the last release of the year also comes with a new default theme. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what's going to be next in there and how many of the features that we are talking about right now are kind of coming into the default theme.
Yes, absolutely. So there actually is a GitHub repository already open for 2025, where you can submit issues with what you would like to see. For example, maybe you want to see an example of how I'm using negative margins, or maybe you want to see the new grid variation, which is now. So the grid has been available in WordPress, but it hasn't had the same kind of UI interface and options that we see in 6.6. So in 6.6, we have the grid as a group variation. I'm looking forward to learning more about how to actually use these settings. I'm not familiar with them yet. Actually, I do find it a little bit confusing. So I have to, really set dedicated time to learning these. So we have the grid, and we are able to, for example, set how many columns we want in the grid. We can adapt, how our content inside the grid will flow into a different row, for example. But then you have to go and select the block that is inside the grid and decide, do I want this particular block to be 2 columns wide, or do I want it to be 2 rows, for example? So once I feel comfortable with that and know how it works, then I think we're going to be able to create some really interesting layouts.
Yeah, you do. And there was a hallway hangout, and you provide the link to it also with Isabel Bryson, who actually worked quite a bit on that feature. And she showed off how she's going to use it, or how she worked on it and what you can do with it. I really liked the way that you could say, okay, any column that is in the grid needs to be, or any cell that needs to have a minimum width of 300, and then it automatically flows with the screen size. So if it's a mobile screen, then you get them all stacked, and if it's a tablet, you get two columns. Yeah, or maybe 3 is probably not wide enough, but and then when you're on the big screen, you get as much as the layout of your website allows, and stack them, have 3 or 4 in a row. Yeah, so that's really good, and it's a responsive way to make your layouts without having to think about responsiveness. So I think that's a great feature for users, because it's a new concept anyway, and our users that haven't been able to create layouts or do some editing on their theme or their headers, and that there is another jump there to make to get the concepts right. Yeah, because I think we have some anecdotal evidence that for some people it was hard to figure out, are we editing a template or am I editing this particular page? And we're then surprised when they thought they're editing a page that it changed for the whole site. So yeah, there are now a few guardrails in the site editor. I'm not sure if they're enough, but I'm also thinking that gets better and better the more people are using it and the more people get confused and talk about it to find the right way to do this. And a grid layout, you don't have to think about that much. That's a concept that people can really adhere to or find maybe not that hard to. I saw quite a few of those layouts where you have a stacked group block inside a grid cell. Yeah, so and those are really cool. Yeah, or have a row inside a grid cell, and those behave really well also in the responsiveness. So I'm excited about the grid layout. I'm really waiting for a masonry grid layout. Yeah, that kind of goes with the flow in every direction. I'm not sure if that's yet available. I have the feeling that not. But there are some experiments that you can, if you use the Gutenberg plugin, there's an experiment page and you can switch on interactive grid layouts and do even more experiments, explorations with that feature for 6.7. Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have to go and check that out.
Yeah.
One thing that I would like to see, I'm not saying it's possible, I don't know if it's possible, but when you have a query loop and you have the post template block inside of it, you have the option to select between lists and the grid. And I would like that grid option that you select in the toolbar of the post template block to have the same type of options, so that I would be able to have, maybe I want the second post in my query to be 2 rows tall, for example. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I would
Not yet.
really
I
love to
had
have
the
more
same
designs
question.
for the post.
No.
Well, the thing is, it's a loop, so of course it loops through every post. So I'm not sure. We will get to that later when we talk about the plugin. I think, because in the query loop, of course, you can't edit. If you add a block to your post template, it's going to be the same block, the same text for every of these posts. So I'm not sure if it would be possible to have one post to be taller or wider than everyone else, unless you, of course, you want to go and do custom CSS, which is absolutely possible. But from the editor, I'm not sure. But I would really like that.
Yeah, in the editor, it's not possible yet. I did many years ago, a layout for a news outlet that had, I think, 6 columns, and the main post was 3 columns wide, and then one was 2 column, then 1 column, and underneath there were six different posts that are kind of in the header section, and that's not available yet, that you can.
No, exactly. So if you wanted, for example, one full width sticker post, you'd have to use you'd use custom CSS to achieve that. Or maybe you'd even have 2 query loops, which of course is at some point is gonna be a performance issue if you have to do the loop twice. But you can't really do that with the options on the block now.
Yeah, maybe one can say that the sticky post is always, I don't know, 2 columns or 3 columns, but yeah, it's all there, because all of a sudden everybody has a different need, and then I cannot imagine the interface, how many dials, and so you could offer the user, though they have every use case in there. But we'll see what's going to be possible later on. And I'm thinking that that's also a great place for plugins to extend the core blocks, to use the grid block in certain ways, and try that out. To kind of say, okay, what is possible, and push the limits a little bit on that.
I'm sure there's going to be responses now saying, "Oh, but this has existed in my plugin for 3 years." Awesome.
Oh yeah.
I have not seen it. I do not have time to test many page building plugins or block block collections, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So as I said, so I think, is there anything else from WordPress 6.6 that kind of stands out for you, apart from those theme related
Well, I'm a
features?
theme nerd, so everything is theme related. We have the background, so the background image settings, where you can now add the background image to various blocks and to the site-wide global styles from the
Right.
site editor for block themes. I
That's
have
good.
mixed feelings about this because I'm glad it is more now. It has a higher, how to say, it matches the customized settings better where you could add the background image, right? But I'm a little concerned that we're going to end up with these group blocks where people are adding text on top of the image and the text is not going to be readable, it's not going to be accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
You know,
We'll
I think
see.
the all the design tools bring hives to some designers because they don't think that a lot of WordPress users are good designers, so they shouldn't have access to those tools. And I'm reminded that there was a big movement in the internet. Yeah, it's kind of called GeoCities. Yeah, where you had all the, or MySpace, where you had all those tools already at your fingertips. And yeah, there was quite some
Oh
funky
yeah,
funky
it's
sites out there. But that's kind of the creativity that is breed when you give people tools. Yeah. So
that's when we used the tables to HTML tables to add our layouts, and we had the dancing baby
yeah,
in the diaper and more
yeah, the
keyboard, more
GIF animations. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, using spacer. But
Yeah.
will you? We found that spacer images are coming back with the spacer block, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. So again, we're going to talk about this about improving the block supports. So in the Gutenberg release 18.8, we're adding shadow support for groups. I don't
yes,
know if I should
not
bring this
it's
up now
we,
or
it's
if we
we.
should.
It's your PR, right? So well, let's talk about it when we go through the changelog,
Yeah,
and we're there in
I just
about two
wanted,
minutes. Yeah,
yeah, in relations to the space block.
yeah,
So we're now not only adding the shadow, we're working now for the next releases to add color options and spacing options to more blocks to make it more consistent, because we have, text-based blocks that doesn't even have text color. One of
yeah.
these ideas is, of course, are we going to have a background on the space block or not? That's, that discussion might be interesting.
Indeed,
Yeah.
because there are also some great separator blocks and spacer blocks in
Mm-hmm.
it. It's kind of both, yeah, right. It's a spacer or it's a separator that have some design to it, and yeah, with CSS you can do some really funky things with waves and going from triangles and that kind of things in different kind of patterns, how the background shines in into the next block. And I like those. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe putting a plugin together with there was a site that has a lot of separators, CSS already
Mm-hmm.
displayed, and you can probably fairly easy add them to a plugin so people can have an additional. So it's a web dev separator generator, is that called? Yeah. um,
Okay.
I'm
Interesting.
gonna look at that. It's from the W Web Dev GitHub group. So
Uh, uh,
I'll share the link in the show notes. And
yeah, a plugin would be a good idea for that because it can, of course, be used in any theme. The problem with doing this kind of thing, like a pattern, if you wanted to do the pattern and submit it to the pattern directory, is that you can't use custom CSS.
yeah, or add it to a theme, but then it's not going from theme to theme. Yeah, then it's not.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
it kind
It's
of goes
keeping
away.
it
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah. Oh, right. I know that we can talk about quite a few things, and we will. But today, just right now, this minute, I wanted to do a side note because with all the features that come to developers and for no-code site builders in WordPress 6.5 and 6.6, you might not need to create a custom block to extend core functionality that much anymore, because you could use block bindings or you could use other tools. That is not that. So on July 23rd, Juan Margarido and Nick Diego have a holder developer hours again, and with the title, Do You Really Need a Custom Block? And they will explore with you, dear listeners, if you want to join them, how to add new functionality to core blocks by content only editing and the allowed blocks attribute in patterns. Yeah, so a lot of people review their custom blocks if they couldn't replace them with patterns because they don't have to maintain so much code, or integrate block bindings and block variations. Though block variations, they're kind of, you need a little bit more development there. And effective block locking and naming, as well as, of course, our latest, most favorite feature, sync pattern overrides. So July 23rd at 1500 UTC, that will take place. It's a live stream on Zoom, and that's 9 a.m. Eastern in the US, 1500 UTC, 9 a.m. Eastern on July 23rd. And also for the same topic, there is also a developer blog post out that lists 15 ways to curate the WordPress editing experience, from disabling specific blocks, so pattern directory or unregistered formatting for the rich text block, to disabling certain sidebar panels. And I know switching on and off for features is really important for clients and content creators. That is a major concern for agencies and publishers. Yeah. And we talked about it earlier as well. Yeah. And this post is a great snippet collection. It also points you to the right places in the documentation. And there are always ways to disable custom colors and core presets in the theme JSON. And I'm sure the full site editing global styles and theme JSON has some notes about that too. So that's kind of about the overall WordPress experience. Do you want to comment on any of that?
I'll try to attend. That sounds really like an interesting call. Yeah, I enjoyed the post about the 15 ways security experience as well.
All right. So we've come to what everybody's waiting for, is what's in Gutenberg 18.8. So there are 211 PRs merged into the plugin release. 57 of those were enhancements, 77 were bug fixes, and 35 of those bug fixes were actually backported to core and made it into WordPress 6.6 and were included in the release candidate 3. But that's all snow from yesterday, as we say in Germany. Badly translated, of course, but it's in 6.6. 60 contributors worked on this release, 10 of them, again, first-time contributors, so congratulations to all. So what's in there? There is a good mixture between experimental stuff, updates on UI, as well as some developer stuff, and of course bug fixes. But the one new feature that comes in as an experiment is the data form. We know about data views. Yeah, that's how all the list views in WP admin could look. When you look at the site editor, you see how pages could look and patterns and all that organized in new views and grid layouts and all that. But what it does not have yet is a data form component. And this is now implemented as a first prototype in an iteration kind of process to duplicate page actions. So there is a modal that opens up and that you get a form. You have to fill that in and hit a submit button. And that is the prototype that comes in. But take a look at it. If you're a plugin developer, yeah, you probably can already see how that works for your plugin, maybe, or how that can go into the WordPress 6.7. I think it's still an experiment, though. It hasn't been released as an official, or maybe not.
I'm not sure, actually.
No, it's actually in the
Let's
plugin.
see.
It's not an experiment. It's any duplicate. So it's in the duplicate action, yeah, that you can see. So when would you duplicate it? You would duplicate a pattern, you would duplicate a page, you would duplicate a template. Yeah, so all these duplicate actions will use that component.
Yeah, it will help with the consistency and also, of course, make it easier to reuse these forms.
Yeah, and also have a standard way of doing forms, and you don't have to make decisions as a plugin developer. Yeah, and how do I do this? Yeah, use the form. Yeah, so but it's not there yet. But what is an experiment is having, so we have pages, we have patterns, we have templates, we have styles, template parts, which are now patterns. What we don't have in the new admin section are posts. You still have to get out and go into the WP admin to add that. And you still would have to do this, but there is a PR in this release where it at least has the framework around to putting a post list into the data views as well. This is an experiment that needs to be enabled through the experiments page of the plugin. The next thing is, it's, all about it, Carolina, is that support for shadows for the group block. Yay, we were waiting for it. Thank you.
I received so many comments and praise for this, and I'm like, okay, thank you, but this change it's so when you create a block support, you create the setting and the UI for it, and you do that once, right? Because it's a support, blocks opt into it compared to a block attribute, which normally is unique and only developed for that single block. So when you enable supports on new blocks or in your plugin, you change maybe 3 lines of code and then you're done. This is usually how it works, and this is how it worked for the group block shadow. It was a very simple change. We needed to do some manual testing to say, about how do we consider the overlap when the shadow is very long? Do we need to do something about that? And we ended up not doing anything except enabling it.
Yeah, and go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there are some other blocks where it's not as simple. We are discovering bugs recently, early this week, not in this plugin release, but maybe the next one or the next after that, is we found that there was still some remaining styles from the list block that affected other blocks that use the list element. So that was fixed. So that's good. So we discovered this when we add background color and realized, wait a minute, the background color it's a little bit off here. So that's how we discover it. So sometimes it's very easy to do this, but I also have a pull request for adding the border to the site logo, which has been going on since 2023. And that is way more complex because we have to work with the link, without link, we have to work with a resizer, have to work with a cropping tool, and so on. So that one is not merged yet, but I'm hoping to get reviews of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to look behind the scenes how much complicated they can be, and when you think that something that is newer, because the group block is relatively new in comparison to other blocks, they kind of fit into the architecture better, because it's a more formal architecture. That wasn't the case earlier on. And so, but thank you so much. And also looking at that, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. And we do it because it's hard, right?
It's interesting that way.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's challenging.
Yeah, and talking about some quality of life around blocks, not quality of life, but a QA around blocks. Was also an effort from quite a few developers, amongst them Maggie Cabrera, to add example snippets to blocks, especially the query block, the post list, the excerpt block, log in, log out block. So when you hover over them in the inserter, that you see on the right hand side, what kind of block is that? Some of the core blocks don't have that, and this was an oversight that has now been rectified. And so this is just going to make it a little bit more smoother, make it a little bit more consistent. The next one is that I wanted to point out is from the inserter, that the PR says it removes the dialog behavior. And that is the behavior that when you click on things, something opens up. And when you're done, click in there and you're done with it, it closes automatically. And the inserter, sometimes it's a little bit of was harder to use because you had to click every time you wanted to add a block and open it up again. And now with that change behavior, you can now have it open and add multiple blocks at the same time to Canvas. So this is definitely a quality of life for the streamlining the workflow for creating content. The next one is what you already mentioned, block background UI controls and have the controls move to a pop-up bar. So these background images to blocks have gotten quite a few refinements in 18.8. Do you want to talk about that?
It's a bit change in the UI. So
yeah, it's definitely also streamlined and consistent through the global styles. You can add background to blocks through the global styles as well as through the blocks properties or settings. So they also streamlined those processes. The next one I found interesting was that's about the group block, and they had a name. They renamed the fill feature to grow. And that indicates, can you explain what that indicates?
So I read the pull request. So it's partially to make the name better match with the CSS functionalities behind the scenes. But it's also about not mixing the fill in this context with the background color fill or the background image. Yeah, so that's the reason why they changed this.
Oh yeah, so it's easier for people to translate, yeah, and not have overlap ideas about things. But it also, I think the fill only has the connotation that it's a fixed width kind of to be filled, and with grow it also indicates that it grows with the blocks that come in. Yeah, so when you put a bigger one in there, it kind of makes it, yeah, and that grow part, that's what the CSS is actually for, called, the property is called grow as well, yeah. Flex grow, it's a for the flex CSS there, yeah.
Yes.
All right, yeah, and then of course that's a great thing is we get color support for the list item. Now we can have stripes in our lists, in each list item could have a different color, and that is really cool. Talking about designs, can you also create gradients around it?
I haven't tried it. How that would look. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some kind of border support, because I would like to sometimes have my list items like underlined. That's one thing. Yeah.
So the underline feature is not available for lists in the inline?
Well, I don't necessarily want to underline text as in it being a
you
link.
want the same, yeah, you want the same length of it, yeah.
Yeah, like the whole list item. Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try out the list block color support with some funky designs, maybe over the weekend. It's really cool. Then the next one is, that's a small change, but it definitely clears up a lot of questions that came in through user support, or that the justification formatting is also coming to the block toolbar in addition to that is in the sidebar, because most people didn't find it in the sidebar when they were looking for it and thought it wasn't possible to justify a certain block or a certain series of blocks. So now it's also available in the toolbar. Is that that's restricted to a few blocks, I would think?
Yes, it's largely inconsistent what's in the toolbar and what's in the sidebar for different blocks.
Yeah. That's true.
Let's see if the pull request probably mentions if it's...
It's definitely available for the Flexbox in the group block.
I only see the post content and the group mention, but I don't think that... I think that was just an example.
Yeah, it's for the group block. I don't know if that's going to come to columns as well. Yeah, we need to test this, dear listener. We haven't tested this little thing yet. Sorry. But if you test it, send in what you think of it and how you use it. But I like that these things are gonna be consistently updated anyway. Yeah, and somebody notices it and says, okay, I'm gonna fix it. And then the next item is a change in the block API. That's more for developers. It's very technical, but it allows a custom block developer to add a file name to the variations fields of the custom block that they are building. So you can create a block and then you also assign variations to it. And then if you don't want it all in the same file, you can add a file name to the variations field, and then it pulls it from there. Very nifty.
Yeah. I mean, especially now, if we're saying that the number of variations that a block has, like the group block, that it keeps growing, it's definitely absolutely useful for block developers, because the group block now has 4. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just kind of thinking, but that was style variations, not block variations. So we have a proliferation of the word variations and styles and blocks, and you can mix it anywhere we want.
Yeah. Block style variation, block variations. It's very similar also in the interface. They're also they're very closely positioned in the interface. As long as you have opened the styles panel, you can have the variation just below the block name or then the description, and then you have the style variation inside the panel, also at the very top.
Yeah, they all look the same. So if you're a visual person like I am, I always know where something stood in a book. I knew the page number and then where on the book. I could find it very easily, yeah. But if it's just all the same, yeah, it's kind of, I need to, maybe can we have a background if something is color coded, kind of, yeah. Or can we have a shape or something like that?
Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
that's
we
just the
didn't
name.
speak. So this is not part of Gutenberg, so now I'm skipping again. So of course, immediately after a major release, contributors are monitoring the support forums and of course the Gutenberg tickets and the track tickets. One of the tickets that stood out a little bit, and I'm not going to talk about the underline, is actually the page and post, the summary, or what used to be a summary panel. And this user was reporting that they weren't able to find the comment settings. Because when you look at the top of the panel now, it's links. So they're not in separate panel anymore. And this person who just saw this for the first time, probably, it wasn't easy for them to find it. And that's one of the changes in 6.6 that we actually haven't discussed, not in this call at least.
Yeah.
People will get used to it. I don't know if anything is going to be moved back. I don't think so.
Well, there was between, I'm not sure if it was from one version to the next, but I know that there was a discussion about where should the revisions panels be. Should it be under the 3-point options kind of thing, or where should the sticky post thing be? And of course, when you know, okay, that worked, that's there now, and I can remember that. But for the first time, the shock, yes. Oh, did it go? Yeah, where'd it go? Yeah, you just want to get your work done, and all of a sudden these hurdles come in, with a new version,
And like the featured image also moved to the very top. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I like that actually, because I always kind of fear that I forget the featured image, and a lot of the designs, a lot of designs are actually very visual, and you have that in your post loop in the list of the blog post, and there's a featured image, and you want to kind of make sure that that's in there. But yeah, it's a change.
Good point. Good reminder to have it there.
Yeah, but what I also like with the new workflow setting is that the number of words is right there. How many are in the post, that you only had to do 3 clicks to actually get to that. So in the outline tab of the list view, so you had to open up the list view, click to the outline, and then see how many words are in the post. Now you just go to the...
So I hope that you're all keeping your blog post to at least 3,000 words now, right? For SEO purposes.
Yeah, and 15 blog posts make a book, right? 3,000 words, does that come from a search engine? Kind of, quality content needs to be 3,000 words.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Only your most important content.
Yeah, but well, our writers on the developer blog, they're always kind of bumping up on that number quite a bit. Yeah, but that's because we have some great code examples and explanations there, and it's always about a real world kind of example, and it takes that long, to explain. All right, what else do we have in 18.8? We have a lot of changes in the component sections, but that's so highly technical about the custom select control version 2. There's a version 2, dear developers. Those will be probably, if they come to a WordPress version, they will be in a dev note kind of complete together. And so you get them, because they're all smaller fixes that are in a bigger context. But now with the PRs, it's harder to describe what's the bigger picture about it. So I would wait until they get into the WordPress major version, where you try them out. So for the block library, we have two things that we wanted to talk about. And one is the aspect ratio control for image blocks in grids. Yeah, that was something that was missing. Also in the hallway hangout, you saw it, that Isabel tried to get the picture into the grid, and then it wouldn't fill up the whole thing. And so you need to, now you can control the aspect ratio of those image blocks. It's really cool. And then the other one is, when I see reduced specificity, I first have a hard time pronouncing that word.
Same. I also have difficulty even trying to spell it if I need to type it out. Yeah, reduce specificity of the social link icon color. I believe this is a bug fix. I guess the colors were either impacting something else or were impacted by.
Yeah,
It
and
helps us
it wasn't possible
override them.
to control them. So now themes can control it. But yeah, CSS specificity was definitely a topic on the Gutenberg, on the WordPress release in 6.6. And there were a few rumblings around, because for some features, theme developers fixed something that core didn't do or needed to override. And now with 6.6, core kind of fixed what they were doing, but then it affected what theme developers were doing to, yeah, kind of, so they had to reduce certain things or revert some of the changes. But it also maybe was a little bit pushed too far with the underlined issue, the link underline issue. But and overall, it was kind of ripping off the band-aid to make section style possible, to
Yes.
reduce the specificity on certain CSS, and kind of have, it only affected a few theme developers that were very heavy on CSS, on style CSS still. But yeah, so how did you find that change in 6.6 with your themes, or with your, or in the discussion with the theme developers?
So I spent so many hours testing these changes early on, but not through the latest release candidates. So I obviously missed many things. I couldn't keep up
Nobody's
with
gonna
the
fault
frame
you.
rate changes. I have not had time to test my websites with 6.6 or my themes. I'm just gonna wait a little and not use the automated upgrade. Yeah, I haven't had time.
Yeah, that's of course a good way to say, let other people find the faults. And I know that the core team is starting to work on a point release to come out, yeah, somehow next week for 6.6.1, and you probably want to wait for that to update all the sites. Yeah, so the release candidate is coming out, I think, tomorrow or today.
I think it's today.
It's today. We are recording this at July 18th. So
yes,
sorry,
correct.
just wanted to say what today is, because it's different for our listeners than it is for us.
So today, on Thursday the 18th, there are 10 fixes in this release.
Okay. All right. And in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about it. So sync pattern got some updates as well. The one PR ensures to disable override buttons is active for image blocks with captions or links, because you could override the image URL and the alt text, but you couldn't change the captions or the link that the image went to, and so, that is now changed.
The part of the bug was that if you already had the original image had a caption and the caption setting was not visible, and you replaced the image, the caption did not update and you were not able to edit it. This sort of solves it in one way, but more work is needed.
Yeah, and that actually went into 6.6. And then the other bug fix for pattern overrides was to fix the aspect ratio with the image overrides. So it wouldn't adhere to the aspect. When you uploaded a new image, it wouldn't necessarily adhere to the aspect ratio that was in the original. before. So that is fixed too, and made it into 6.6. Yeah, was backport to core. Yes. All right. And then we had disable post meta editing and blocks in. That's one of the inside query loops to finish my sentence.
Yes, so this has to do with the synced patterns, the writes, and the block bindings, and it prevents bugs. Again, like with the query loop is against the loop, so everything you add to the inside it is going to be repeated, and that's why it should not be editable that way.
Yeah, there was a feature there that if you needed to change a post meta for a certain block, you could do it in the query block, but that is now stopped. It's disabled now. So there's no confusion and kind of overrides on that. I think there were race conditions on the database for that. So that's a good thing that it's not on the query loop. If you want to change the metadata for a post, go to the post and do it there. Then there's one fix there that's just for those who use the image block for plugins, and that is that the media ID and the block HTML are supported for the block bindings. But that's just it's really a technical update and a bug fix for 6.6. But it had quite a few discussions there and how that's gonna be fixed. But it is fixed now. And then there are quite a few experiments, and we talked about that grid layouts or interactive grids is one experiment in the Gutenberg plugin. And there are two features: allow inserting blocks directly into the empty grid cells via drag and drop. And then also use the manual placement attribute to set manual grid mode and allow responsive behavior in both modes. So in the grid layouts in 6.6, when you switch on the manual feature in the sidebar, it takes away. So, and you say, okay, I wanted 3 columns width in manual, then even your mobile version has 3 columns because that's what you said in a manual grid. And now with them, they allow, this is an experiment to allow certain manual grid attributes and make sure that it's still a responsive behavior. So it's kind of not quite sure if that is the right UI or the right approach. So go there and experiment with it to see if that satisfies. Because of course it's surprising that if you put some manual in there, I want 4 columns, and yeah, all of a sudden you see it in mobile and it is not responsive. That disconnect is really hard to decipher. Yeah. And Nick Diego, who was the author of the 15 ways to curate the editor experience, found a gap in the documentation, and he added how the rich text formatting or switching off rich text formatting features is done for the editor curation documentation. So that's good. And then another documentation enhancement is that the interactivity API documentation now includes a few more examples and the reference for more examples in there. So if you are trying to get your head around the interactivity API, that might be even better. Just an announcement is CSS hacks for Internet Explorer 11 have been removed from the block editor, from the Gutenberg plugin. And I don't know how many. I think when we removed the Internet Explorer 11 support in general in WordPress, there was quite a big number of code line changes or removals. I don't think this would amount to it. It's probably most of the time an if then else hack, but it's removed and it's a clearer way to look at the CSS. All right. Anything else you want to comment on for that?
Fixing documentation is always awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes there's quite a few things that need to be fixed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this concludes, dear listener, our review of the Gutenberg changelog for the Gutenberg 18.8 release. So we're on the section now, what's in active development and discuss. And I want to point out 3 things to you. One is a very small one, and that is adding color and other style options to the audio block. That is a PR or an issue right now that's discussed on how to manage that and what is the minimum viable product on that. Do we need a featured image? Do we not use a featured image on that? All that, but chime in on that. So the developer who will take that on has your input. If it adheres to it, as of course that's a different story, but it's definitely good to form opinions and to make them available.
I know we're over time already.
Yeah.
I guess I get a little bit excited about talking about WordPress.
Right.
So the audio element, which is used in the block, is almost impossible to style without either basically completely covering it with another element using CSS or with JavaScript, and it's impossible to do it with just CSS. So to add the color options for everything around the actual audio element, yeah, that's an interesting approach to it.
Yeah, it's definitely something, and it's also there's another element out there like the video elements, yeah, or some of the embeds that also could use some additional style options. And I think the working on the audio block gives everybody kind of a feel how that can be approached and what would be needed there. So it's also the iteration process. I also wanted to share with the audience a link to an experiment on free-form image cropping. Yeah, the image proper is quite difficult to get your head around. And the block editor, as well as in the classic editor, there is no, yeah, the both are kind of abysmally. So there is a PR that developer is working on, and it's still in draft, so it hasn't been even merged or for review, but it's definitely something you want to look at and kind of maybe you can try it out. And then the biggest link that I wanted to share with you, dear listener, is the updates for the media library. So the next step for the admin redesign is, of course, the posts, but that's a small thing because the most things for the post everybody knows already. But the biggest one is how to rethink the media library with a new data admin. And Ramon started the process with a tracking issue, and there is quite some discussion there what else would be needed to change things or to bring over how it's working now. So there's quite a discussion there that's first interesting to see what everybody else is thinking, but also to chime in and figure out what is the first version gonna look like when it comes to that media library in the new data admins. And with that, we are at the end of the show. Thank you so much, Carolina, for being on the show and letting us all know about block themes and what's in 6.6 and what's coming, and talking about the Gutenberg 18.8 plugin. Is there anything that you want to announce from Yoast or from what you are working on that you didn't get to talk about? You get about 2 minutes or 3 now.
No, it's okay. I work on Gutenberg, when I find issues that are easy enough for me to work on.
Yeah.
But usually me says that, this looks easy, and then 4 hours later, you're completely down the rabbit hole. I'm still trying to help out with the bundle teams triage,
Excellent.
the bundle team task force, and continue to find the problems, reporting new issues, and then we solve it together. So it's working.
Well, thank you so much for the great work on all of it, on what's in WordPress. And listener, as always, the show notes will be published on gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. This is number 104. And if you have questions and suggestions or news you want us to include, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. And if people want to connect with Carolina Niemark, it could be definitely on WP Slack. Your name is Puena, right?
Yes.
And on Twitter, it's Carolina Puena, if you want to kind of follow her on what she shares on the social media. And thank you so much for being here, Carolina. It's always a great pleasure to have you. And
thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and I will do so again in a few months. So I hope to see you soon. I don't know, on any of the WordCamps. I don't know, you're gonna go to Rome to the core days, or to what's your next WordCamp?
Undecided.
Undecided.
Maybe
Yes.
Rome, or maybe not until the next World Cup Europe.
Yeah, I'm undecided too. So I'm kind of, we'll see. Yeah. And if not, we see each other on the interwebs, and
Oh, yes.
take care. Bye bye.